So, Mikhail, welcome back. Another podcast.
Thank you. How are you, Vian?
I'm very good, very good. Always excited to record something new.
I know. I can't wait. What are
I,
we talking about today?
I think today is quite a interesting, I'd say relevant topic,
Mhm.
especially with social media and the way things are presented on social media. This is very much a reality versus, the online version of what you're seeing. It's Instagram versus reality is the trend that's been going on.
Are you saying there's fake stuff out there?
No, never. No, no fake stuff on the internet. Everything's real. Um, but I wanted to ask, Art Voyage has a big philosophy of testing experiences and destinations before we offer them to guests.
Mhm.
And I think this really fits into the thing of, reality versus fake. Um, and you've done a few trips even recently where you did this exactly, is like trying new places at different times of the year, trying new experiences at different time of the year to feel what they like and if it really lives up to what you're wanting to offer guests. So just quickly to start this off, tell us a bit about your philosophy behind doing that.
Um, I think it's important for credibility to be able to have tested, you know, experienced things on the ground. It's clearly not possible to test and do all of the offerings that we provide our guests, whether it's on the curated side or the exclusive side. But whenever we can, even if it's just like Polly just came back from a week in Prague and Vienna, or she had her homework to do, right? So even if we go on personal vacation to destinations, I think it's important for us to test, to gather as much information that is reliable,
Mm,
that is not just reviews online. I think it's important for us to create something that feels right, not something that is trending, that is um, can I say generic?
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I mean, a big thing is, can something beautiful still not be good? Uh,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
and I think a lot of destinations to fit that profile, you see it on Instagram and it looks incredible and it is beautiful.
Depends when you go.
Yes, but also the reality of being at these beautiful places is often very different. You're waiting in lines for hours. You have 5 minutes to look at the view and take a picture before you're ushered out already, and that really ruins
The whole
the
experience for
whole
people.
experience.
Yeah, and I saw something on Instagram where this guy was actually went during busy times versus quiet times, and he was doing a reality versus, reality versus what's happening or what's being told online about that particular destination. I always have one that comes to mind. And again, let's be clear. Is beautiful worth it? Is beautiful always good? No, I think at some point in time, people need to stop looking at the beautiful aspect of things and understand, maybe even question themselves, why do they want to go to that particular destination? What is it that they're seeking? Are you seeking to take tons of pictures that you can put on your Instagram just to match or to rival what others are doing? Or are you seeking to actually find peace, find maybe commingle with the locals, maybe find the local culture, the food, in which case you're probably looking for a place that is not as crowded, right? So I, at the beginning, we always ask our guests, what is it that you're seeking? And they're always going to be getting the best advice from us. So at least not the best, the most honest advice. One example that always comes back is the Amalfi Coast. I know the Amalfi Coast has that appeal. um, I don't know if it really comes from Instagram because listen, I've been in this business long enough to know that the Amalfi Coast has been an attraction to people for the longest time, long before Instagram was what is was even online. But um, the Amalfi Coast is absolutely incredible when you go off season. But people yet are insisting on going during the season. I'm sure there is some, you know, got to go at that time because that's the only time off I can get
Yeah.
and things like that. But and it's a beautiful destination. Is it good during high season? No. You're not going to enjoy yourself. You're going to be stuck in traffic. You're going to be competing for pictures with others who are going to be in your shot. You're going to be in their shot. You're going to go to crowded, beach clubs. You're going to stay in hotels that are overcharging you because they can. So beautiful does not always equal good. But at the same time, you have to do what feels right for you.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, of course.
So if you're willing to accept that, as long as you've been warned, and unfortunately, a lot of travel advisors do not really tell their clients
Yeah, yeah.
what to expect. We do, and we have a tendency, and people who know me know that I push back, and in a nice way, right? I don't ever dismiss a guest's desire to go to this specific destination, but what's the point of hiring us, right? If we can't come up with, the expertise and the advice that one should be receiving, the honest truth and the honest advice.
I mean, I think you just mentioned you push back. I've heard you do this a few times, and I'd say people generally always come back saying, thank you
Mhm.
for doing that. Um, and I think that that really comes back to why it's important to see and experience things first. Because we can't give you the advice purely based off something we've read online
Yeah.
or purely based off we've seen a TikTok video or an Instagram reel about it because again, reality is very different. Um, so when you do go test experience and stuff, what's something that you would say in let's put red flags for you? If you're on a tour, what's a red flag? If you walk into a new restaurant we want to offer, what's a red flag? At the same time, what is a green flag? I mean, based on those two things, what are your main things you look for?
Quality of service. So one thing that I always look, whether if especially if I go off season, is so especially if you go in September or October to a lot of those places, the staff is exhausted. The restaurant staff, the hotel staff is exhausted from a very busy time. And to me, it's important to see that they're still holding up to the quality and the level of service they're supposed to provide.
Yeah,
So to me, that's a green flag if they are. If they are as nice as they would be at the beginning of the season, if they're as helpful as they would be at the beginning of the season, to me, that's an indication. And we're talking about a restaurant or a hotel,
yeah.
not necessarily a destination. To me, that's a green flag. The red flag would be the opposite, where, here I am dealing with maybe people that are seasonal and that are here just to make a buck or two,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily entrenched in the day to day or the local traditions of that particular destination.
I mean, it's something you've mentioned to me many times before, and something we really experienced firsthand when we did Tours of the Adriatic
Mhm.
last year was one of the food tours we did, where it was literally a local father, his wife, his two kids
Yep.
in their backyard making a slow cook meal for
Yep.
everyone. And everyone loved this
Mhm.
experience, and that is not something you're going to find
Yeah.
anywhere online.
And that's the thing. So red flag, red flag would be too much online. Green flag would be hard to find, right? Um, those are things that we look for. If we see, I'm gonna give the analogy of a restaurant. If you go to a restaurant and you have to turn 20 different pages, to see what's on the menu, that means you have tens and tens, maybe about 100 different options. It's not a good sign,
Yeah,
right? For a restaurant to be able to offer so many options, I mean, they're keeping things in a freezer,
they're going
maybe, yeah,
quantity over quality.
exactly.
Yeah,
I want to go to a restaurant where I turn 2 pages. And yes, the menu is going to be limited, but very likely I'm going to have a far better
incredibly.
experience. Exactly. And even more so if you can see the menu is actually typed every day, right? So because now
Right.
you see that you're getting fresh things
Yeah.
from the market, and not just that, but the creativity from the chef who's not relying on something that's going to run the whole summer, right? So same thing here. If I see too much of something online, not a good flag, not a good flag. Um, if we go to viator.com or getyourguide.com, only to name a few. And again, I'm not dissing at all those particular platforms, right? They're needed
Mm.
at so many levels. But to me, if I go on there and I type a specific keywords, a specific experience, and I see it offered in so many different ways by so many providers, red flag. Now,
It's going to be
it
crowded.
doesn't, yeah, it's going to be crowded, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to offer it to our guests. But what we're going to do is maybe look for something that we're going to customize and tailor just for them. We're going to look at, okay, let's see if maybe there's a day of the week that is less busy than others. It's
I mean,
easy. You can look at the calendar, right? And it will show you
yeah,
already
yeah.
offered
I
on
mean, on that
cruise.
point, I know in the past, what you've also done is you do contact someone through one of these sites, present them an entirely different experience on what they're doing,
Yeah.
same destination, but just changing it a bit. And I think that's something special as well.
If they agree to do it, that's a good sign. Um, Again, you're throwing a wrench at them and they're like, yes, I can actually do this. It's a good idea. If they come back and push back and they give you a good reason for that, it also indicates that that person knows what they're doing and what they're
Yeah,
talking about, right? But yeah, to me, the ability to adapt to what our guests are looking for and not doing some mass tourism or so some offering some mass again, let me make sure people understand, there's no 10,000 ways of doing the Eiffel Tower,
yeah,
right? But there's definitely 3 or 4 ways, and maybe 3 of them are offered online in mass, fashion.
yeah, yeah,
The fourth one will be the one that we'll do for them, right? It could be a very different thing, but it could be something significant for our guest. Same river cruise in Paris, you can do it on those 100 passenger river boats, or you can do it on the boat that we have with one of our partners, which is 10 guests at the most, and it's
yeah.
private and they have champagne and hors d'oeuvres.
I mean, I think this is also, I think, helpful for anyone looking at luxury travel in general, is also looking for these experiences, but also not getting price gouged
Yeah.
for certain things. And I think that's something you've learned over the years, and the suppliers and the people Art and Voyage works with is offering a very fair price for the luxury you're getting. It's not a, oh,
It's
this is
it,
a,
it's about the right value.
exactly.
Now, it doesn't mean things are going to be cheap. The more
No,
private you go, the more unique, the more exceptional, the less available it is online. It's supply and demand. It's very simple.
yeah,
It's going to be a little more expensive, but there's expensive and price gouging expensive,
yeah,
right? If I come in, I immediately say my clients are American. In many instances, we've seen in the past, and needless to say, those people are no longer, our providers. The price would go up.
yeah,
Why? Because there is this perception that American clients could afford it as opposed to European clients. You still see it to some extent, some of the contracts that we have with properties and other partners. You can see the price is very different if we say we're a European company as opposed to an American company. The contracted price that comes in are actually quite different. And last but not least, you see it on airlines all the time. Now, I fly quite a lot, and I can assure you that um, the jet fuel that is used, the equipment that is used, and the staff that is used for a flight from New York to Cape Town and return is exactly the same no matter which direction you
mm,
start. But if you start from South Africa, for instance, right, it's going to be half the price than if you start from the US. Now, again, we're looking at the same distance, the same equipment. That's because there's this perception and maybe a reality to some
mm,
extent that Americans can afford and would pay that amount of money. So price gouging can be found in how the price structure is designed as well. And to me, that's also a red flag. So you talk about red flag,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
red flags. To me, that's a red flag. I'm definitely going to research it. And often, listen, when we found a vendor, provider, we keep it. If we like them, we keep them.
Yeah, you build a
So the,
relationship.
yeah, so the
Yeah,
research, as we move forward, the research is smaller and smaller. The need for research is smaller and
I
smaller.
mean,
But we evaluate our partners on a regular basis.
yes,
Not, I mean, people are subject to failures, are subject to screwing up, and then the way they answer, the way they fix it is
yeah.
also a determining factor whether or not we keep them.
I mean, we actually spoke on this topic earlier today, when we went to have a coffee, is, spotting a good experience versus a bad experience, especially in the planning phase. And you just mentioned a few things, is, building a relationship with vendors is important,
Mhm.
because that directly translates to the experience your guests are going to have. And I think you've done that very well from what I've seen in the past, especially our travel operations team. Very good at vetting, very good at
Yes,
understanding.
our Nicole has become excellent at
She
that,
has, yeah.
and she's a little mini Mikhail when it comes to that.
Too many colors can be
Yeah,
handled.
yeah, no, but I mean, it's needed. It's needed. You want to be polite and firm,
Yes.
um, and you certainly want to vet them to the full extent, and that includes. I'm not above looking at reviews. You have to be doing it very carefully. I know that's one of the things you wanted to discuss. So since we're on the topic, reviews to us are very important, but you got to read the reviews.
Mm,
You cannot just be stuck to the star rating. We've had hotels that we've sent guests to that are absolutely out of this world and only have a 4.3 on TripAdvisor. If you dig deep in, you'll see that a lot of the 1 or 2 stars that were provided, which will drop your score drastically
Mm.
very quickly, are about the color of the blinds. Maybe the room service that day did not have the soup they wanted. And
It's trivial.
it's
Yeah,
exactly. And it's people who, for lack of a better word, don't have anything else better to do that feels like they have to destroy the reputation of that particular property. So it's important not to stop. Same thing with restaurant at just the star rating. Something I've noticed as well with star rating is the bigger the city and the lower the star rating you'll find on some of the top hotels, right? So you get more visitors,
yeah.
obviously. So you get a bigger pool of visitors, and a pool of visitors that is coming from far different countries, right?
Expect
Very
very different
diverse.
things. Yeah.
And you're going to have people expecting very different things. An American traveler is going to expect things that are very different from a French, from a German, from an English one. So a hotel often will have to adapt to each clientele, but it's not always easy.
But I think that's also, again, why we go to the hotel to really see what it's like
Yeah,
on the ground.
yeah.
Um, I mean, you recently did your trip, which I'm sure we'll speak about more in the future as well, to very different locations,
Mhm.
Lapland, and really going into minus 42 degrees Celsius and experiencing that on a different hand, trying winter travel above, summer travel and what that means. And I know you're now working on looking at different, creative ways to integrate some winter travel. And winter travel doesn't necessarily mean travel in the winter. Maybe it's winter in the northern hemisphere, and you travel to the southern hemisphere where it's summer. And it's just looking at the things differently. Which again, you've gone and tested it, and you look at what you've gathered, and you make a plan from there.
Yeah. But we also help, those suppliers, those partners. I think that testing and experiencing is one thing for our guests, but when you see the potential as well, it's your duty to give feedback. So one example, the place in Lapland that we wanted to test, that I went to test, they had just opened. And unfortunately, when you roll out a new hotel, a new property, a new restaurant, things go south sometimes. And they did, but it's how they handled it. And so I prepared a 20-page report with pictures and suggestions. So it was not all about criticism, it was about things that they could do
Yeah.
to make it better, to improve it. And sometimes it's so tiny. But I had the same experience in Tallinn at one of the five-star property I stayed at. Sometimes it's communication. Sometimes it's about the expectations, right? Um, and it's the little tiny touches at times that listen, your first impression is everything.
Mm.
And when you arrive at a property, whether it's a 5-star, a 4-star, whether it's a lodge in the middle of Kruger National Park or Tanzania or in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? It doesn't matter. Your first impression as you get there
Set
is
the
going to
tone.
be it's going to set the tone. It's going to be the long lasting one. And if it doesn't go well when you get there, it's unlikely to continue going well because we are wired to be negative at that moment in time, and be pessimistic as to how the rest is going to go. So it's super important, even for us. I
Yeah.
mean, the moment our clients land, wherever the destination they're traveling to us, it's important. That moment is important.
Yeah.
That goes well,
Yeah.
right? So us being able to go and travel to places, not just to try new destination, but to also make sure that we have the right partners on the ground is
Yeah.
extremely important. It's not always possible, and this is why we have to rely on research. We have to rely on communicating with potential partners. Research is extremely important, but then okay, you've done research. Okay, it's important to talk to the actual partner, right? Once you talk to the partners, you throw a few wrenches, hypotheticals to see how quickly they can adapt and pivot
Yeah.
to what the guests could be looking for, or the preferences, or how quickly our guests might want to shift onto something. And the answers that we get and the responses, as well as the ability for them to adapt, is a green light for
Yeah.
us to be able to use them.
So
Sometimes it goes wrong, and it's very possible that partners that we've used for 2, 3 years, we all have a bad day. Um, it's how they fix it and how
yeah.
how they take care of it that matters to us.
So I think on a closing thought, um, just you talked earlier about pushback and, you know, telling a guest who might be interested in something that this might not be a right match for you.
Mhm.
Um, how would you say people who will be coming to luxury travel or looking at doing a trip should prepare themselves in a way for that? To be a bit more open-minded as to being set in what you've seen and the reality of that, and being able to negate that with the guest, just as a closing to kind of wrap up the whole conversation we've had, because I think that's essentially boils down to that moment where we need to convey what we've experienced.
Yeah, is beautiful good, or is it, what was the phrase you had?
Can something be beautiful and not good?
Yeah,
That right here. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and it's about how it feels, right?
yeah.
It's I think, in all honesty, all the guests that contact us are quite open. I have never really gotten a guest who pushed back at my pushback. It's also the way you present it.
Mm,
At the end of the day, you have to expect that people calling you for your expertise and to design something are going to trust your expertise, right? And are going to follow your
mm,
advice. Now, very rarely we move people away completely away from an idea that they had originally, but maybe we'll present it differently.
yeah,
Maybe we'll suggest a different time of the year to do it. So often the destination they want to do, they want to do,
yeah, yeah. No,
and you can't really shut that down. But let's say they travel twice a year, you could say, okay, how about you shift things around? How about you do that destination in that particular time of the year when
mm,
it's going to be more enjoyable, more pleasant, and your experience will be enhanced, and then do that one at that part of the year.
yeah,
So they're very open to that. After that, once we've established the destinations, once we've established the you know, some of the suggestions we might have that are not necessarily in line with their original request, things are very smooth. They trust us on selecting the right hotels. They trust us on
mm.
selecting the right vendors and so forth. So it's not an issue at all. Um, we do what we do, and we're successful at what we do. Um, to make sure the guests have a great experience. This is our priority number one, is that they come back happier than when they left,
Yeah.
right? So even more excited when they come back than when they actually left. And that they come back to us, that they return.
And I think just to end off what we already talked about is we also learn from guests that have been there on the trip, done the experience,
Mhm.
and they give us feedback.
Yeah,
And I think that is one of some of the most valuable feedback we can get is they have lived through this experience after we crafted what they wanted, and then we take that and
yeah,
improve again to the point where it's perfect. If you
absolutely.
want to say it.
Listen, people are very different from one another. It's never going to be. uh, I take an example, and then we can close on that. But when we do curated journeys, often, not often, let me rephrase this. At times, we're being told, oh, would it be nice if, on your journey, you could do that? So while we're on the journey, they talk about a particular experience or destination. And often I would come back and say, actually, we used to. But the previous guest said, oh,
Mm,
wouldn't it be nice to do this or that? So we decided as a whole to take the feedback, absolutely, try to incorporate it
mm,
as an à la carte. So we're not going to change the whole itinerary, but because, as you know, our creative journeys are quite flexible.
yeah,
If you prefer to do this that day while we're doing that, we're happy to offer it. But changing the whole itinerary based on the feedback of 10 guests,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
at the expense of the next 10 guests who might be very different in terms of preferences, personalities, and interest, it it would do a disservice to everyone. But yes, we definitely can integrate the
I
feedback.
mean,
We take it.
if you
We
have
take the feedback.
multiple levels of feedback, at
Absolutely.
some point you have your portfolio, and this would fit better with this would
Exactly.
fit
And
better
now
with
we're able
this.
to offer à la carte
Yeah,
services, which we started doing with our Journey Your Way, where we have the whole structure of the journey and people can, select what they want to do. And one example is our Greek one coming up. The requests that are coming in, or the options that people are selecting, even within a group of friends, are very different.
yeah.
So the feedback that we get is always very helpful. Absolutely. And we welcome it. And promise I will close on that. We're actually testing, we're on the last stages of testing our a new feature on our app, which will allow guests who are traveling with us and using the app to actually add their own event. So we call it an event. So often, guests book their own restaurants. Maybe it was recommended by someone or whatever. And we want to make sure that they put in the app so they have really the whole itinerary complete,
Yeah,
what we did and what they want to do. Sometimes they book their own tickets to the Eiffel Tower, or there's always things of
yeah,
that nature. So now they can add it, but it's going to go beyond that. It's actually going to allow us to double check that the partner that they're adding or the experience they're adding is in line with what our standards are.
yeah,
And without telling them cancel it, we're going to go back if we feel like that particular vendor or experience is actually subpar, and let them know why we believe this and why we believe another one might be better. So it's another example where our experience can
yeah,
come into place with what the guests want to do on their own, right? So we're so excited about that new feature because it actually, one of our guests actually suggested that we allow them to add their own
nice.
events. And so
Yeah,
within a few months, our IT guys were working on it, and we hope to deploy it very quickly. But it's another example of how we can work with each other about feedback
yeah, yeah.
and about providing the best experience that they can have.
I mean, that's great.
I know,
In the end, it goes full circle. I mean,
exactly.
everyone's helping each other.
And if they end up finding a good local provider that they're doing an experience with, which we didn't have in our portfolio, it helps us as well for the next.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Well, exciting. I think we've covered some interesting topics. Um, and
Otherwise, we'll lose viewership.
uh, for everyone listening, we'll also have recorded this, so it'll be on YouTube and Spotify as well. You can watch us just talking to each other. But thanks everyone for listening. Mikhail, thank you for
You
the
guys, always a
podcast,
pleasure. Yes,
and we look forward to talking again in the next episode.
absolutely. Thanks,
Cheers.
Dan.